I'm back, baby.
The second season of X-Men 97 has been so eventful so far that I was too engrossed with the schemes of Apocalypse up against the mutant heroes. However, the fifth episode, titled Weapon X Lies and DVDs, offers a welcome change. I mean, I always knew that Wolverine would take the center stage sooner or later, but I didn't expect a full-blown episode focused on his journey to get the Adamantium back in his system. Also, with all the Weapon X history and fun cameos, this is a really entertaining standalone episode. I have to agree it feels a bit rushed because the makers breezed through an insane amount of comic book stories and references in under 30 minutes, but it never disappoints as it flies through all these plot points. There are loads of details in the episode that you may have missed because of the breakneck pace, and in this video, I will highlight all the little things and Easter eggs that make this one so special. The recap recounts the horrifying ordeal of Magneto attacking Wolverine. As I've said before, this particular episode, you need to forget for a while that Apocalypse is after absolute supremacy and the X-Men are in his way. You need to forget that Magneto has been seemingly killed, and all the chaos that might follow is not the subject here. Instead, a recap before the episode makes it clear that they are drawing from one of the most terrifying moments in X-Men 97, when a berserk Magneto uses his powers to draw out the adamantium from Wolverine's body. This caused him extreme pain and nearly killed Wolverine, and now he has been shown functioning with his bone claws. Well, the episode happens to be a continuation of the story, and that's exactly what we see here. Logan has put together an interesting team here. The first scene shows the team flying through the icy wilderness, and on board we have a very interesting team. There is Kane, Sabretooth, Lady Deathstrike, and Maverick alongside Logan, who has a plan in mind. They're all pretty hyped up to get their revenge on Dr. Cornelius, who had turned them all into mindless killing machines. And even though they aren't necessarily friends, they have got together for a common purpose. Wolverine has found out that the Weapon X scum has a new lab where they are conducting some illegal experiments again, and his team is supposed to put an end to that. Morph introduces the team perfectly. This is a really colorful group of people put together, and Morph sums it up very nicely when he talks about the history between Logan and Yuriko, when they used to date, or the love-hate relationship between Logan and Sabretooth, and the dynamics that they share with the likes of Kane and Maverick. In short, it is not every day that you see these guys working together, so this is clearly the occasion for it. A sudden crash puts them in the middle of nowhere. Their chopper comes under an unexpected turbulence caused by a flock of birds, and there is something abnormal about the group of birds crashing into the windscreen and the tail fan, causing the chopper to crash. It is a delicate moment because the team is visibly rattled. Moreover, it looks like they have lost Kane to the crash, and Logan is nowhere to be found as the frantic Morph looks for him. When the culprits behind the crash are explored, we realize that these are not any ordinary birds, but the creatures have been infected by something sinister. Also, Morph finds Lady Deathstrike and Maverick. The deadly bear attack is unnerving. I don't expect a show like this to pull punches, and this episode does a wonderful job of keeping the ambience tense. As Morph, Yuriko, and Maverick walk through the icy trail looking for Logan and Sabretooth, they suddenly get attacked by a massive bear. The bear seems to be infected as well, and it is extremely violent as it charges the trio. Wolverine joins the fight, but he gets pinned down by the bear before Sabretooth comes along and snaps its neck. Of course, he doesn't waste the opportunity to boast about his powers to Logan, as he says, "Ain't you glad I've always been better than you?" Also, this is when the likes of Yuriko and Sabretooth find out that Wolverine has lost his adamantium claws. The creep vibe in the facility. Well, finally the team reaches the mysterious facility, but by then there have been enough hints for us to pick up on the fact that something very disturbing is going on here. Lady Deathstrike suspects a contagion of sorts, and the enhanced senses of Sabretooth confirm that he has never smelled anything like this before. Even when they walk into the facility, it is eerily quiet and smells strange. After descending through a lift, they figure out that Cornelius is around here somewhere, and Maverick points out to a control room in the facility that they must explore. Dr. Cornelius finally shows up, but even before the team comes up against Dr. Cornelius, they find the entire facility in ruins. It is almost like someone has ravaged the place and there are dead scientists and staff all over the place, some even horribly mutilated. When they finally come across Dr. Cornelius, you immediately get the feeling that there is something wrong with him. He dismissively ignores the threat posed by such a dreaded team. He ridicules the work of Yuriko's fathers, which he has perverted for his twisted motives, and he calls Professor Oyama's work junk. Sabretooth loses his patience and wants to deal with him, but suddenly Cornelius starts laughing like a maniac, much to the confusion of everyone, including Wolverine. The Brood is introduced. It is the distorted laugh of Cornelius that gets to me, but what happens next is straight out of an 80s sci-fi movie. He vomits some greenish, gooey substance and transforms into a terrifying alien creature with tentacles. The creature's appearance will remind you of Alien and Predator stuff, as will the screeching sound that it makes. Suddenly, they are attacked by many other alien creatures, and it turns into a chaotic indoor battleground as they shoot and cut through the creatures. It is really fun to see Wolverine in action, and also Morph turns into the Thing briefly to smash his way through some of these hostile aliens. Luckily for the team, they find their way into a bunker laced with adamantium, which cannot be broken into. However, Wolverine has other plans as he intends to go deeper into the facility. Apparently, going deeper is the only way out. Morph talks them out of infighting. You know, tensions are always going to be high when Wolverine and Sabretooth are around each other. After his face-off with the Brood, Sabretooth is suspicious of Wolverine and wonders if he has been infected as well. It adds to his suspicion that he hasn't seen Wolverine immediately after the crash, to which Maverick points out that he hadn't seen Yuriko either. It risks turning into a brutal infighting before Morph becomes the voice of reason. He explains that there is a chance that Dr. Cornelius infected himself with the alien DNA, and the team separates to look for a safe way out. Yuriko takes Morph, whom she keeps calling Tomo, and Maverick and Wolverine team up. The Tomo reference is a fun one. It is almost amusing to see Yuriko referring to Morph as Tomo, and it turns out that there is a solid Japanese reference here. Tomo is a magical shape-shifting fox from Japanese folklore, and he was a loyal sidekick to a heroic samurai. Tomo could do anything and shape-shift into anyone in order to help the samurai on his adventures, but it did not work out well for Tomo. Now, this really got me worried because I started to wonder if Morph will have a similar fate as Tomo. After all, it has been fairly clear from the beginning of the episode that Morph is a lot more in focus here than usual. A few uncomfortable discoveries. As Yuriko and Morph and Sabretooth head deeper into the systems room, Sabretooth shows up some of his technical prowess that he has apparently mastered over his hundreds of years of existence. In the room, they find several DVD tapes, and the titles on them are really interesting. The digital video disc contains files on X-23, Cyborg, Winter Soldier, Wolverine, Silver Fox, Sabretooth, and many others. Playing one of the discs unravels some uncomfortable secrets about their past. Dr. Cornelius talks about how the broken pasts that made the subjects to the experiments so quick to volunteer also made them defective. They always seem to remember bits of their past despite countless memory wipes. However, all the shortcomings to the experiment were eased once something from outer space was obtained as a subject. Introducing the Brood. The show explains the Brood pretty well. I really like the fact that the show doesn't treat the newcomers to the franchise with disdain. Everything is explained clearly, even for those who are not familiar with the comic book lore or the earlier animated series. The Brood, for instance, has been described as a hive species, like ants or bees. Each brood is interlinked, and they are incapable of divergent thought or emotion. They just have a shared psyche that comprises their basic instinct, which is to survive. The purpose of Cornelius' experiment is to use their cranial fluid to create a serum that can purge the deepest seated memories. This would make the weaponized creations more obedient, but it did still run into a hiccup. A possessed Wolverine. This has to be one of the highlights of the episode because I have never seen anything like it. After getting attacked by a creature of the Brood, they come upon a more startling discovery. Maverick cries out for help, and after reaching him in the Adamantium chamber, the team finds something horrific. Maverick tells them about how Logan has been taken over by the Brood, and before you know it, a feral and possessed Wolverine appears before us. It is absolutely vicious, and it is quite a sight as Wolverine grabs Maverick and digs his claws deep escape into his body. With Maverick dead, the transformed Wolverine attacks others and Morph takes quite a beating. Yuriko tries to fight back, but it is Sabretooth with a flamethrower who steps into the game big time. Moreover, their fight breaks the chamber, concealing Omega Red, and the crisis worsens. Omega Red is the best cameo. I know we have a whole series of cameos in this episode, but Omega Red has to be the one to steal the show. We see him trapped in one of the chambers, and Sabretooth's first thought is to kill it, before the voice of reason in the team, Morph, points out that Omega Red is undead. He is not convinced that Omega Red can be turned into the Brood, given that his basic mutant power is like that of a zombie. Once he breaks out, the voice acting is just perfect as he says, "Wolverine, you look as bad as I feel, comrade." Morph and his many transformations. I did say that this episode is almost as much about Morph as it is about Wolverine, and Morph truly shines even in such a crisis. He might be outmatched by the others in terms of power, but he still fights to the best of his abilities and does what he does best. In this episode, we have seen him transform into the Thing, Spider-Man, Deadpool, Cyclops, Wolverine, and Jean Grey, and somehow each one of the transformations were meaningful and helped in the crisis. Morph forces Sabretooth and Yuriko to stay back for Wolverine. After escaping from a hostile Omega Red and a transformed Wolverine, Yuriko and Sabretooth want to get out of there, but Morph wouldn't let them leave before they can find Wolverine. See, I don't know what it is with him and Logan. Maybe it is just friendship and his loyalty, or maybe it is something more, but he wouldn't leave Wolverine in this state, no matter the dangers that lie ahead of him. This even causes a fight between Morph and Sabretooth, and it is heartening to see Morph fight Sabretooth as Silver Samurai, even as Yuriko tries to explain that Wolverine is gone. Wolverine really came here to get his claws back. This really is the true purpose of the episode, and Sabretooth realizes that Wolverine's entire mission had nothing to do with Weapon X, and he simply wanted his adamantium claws back. The chaos did start in the adamantium chamber, and now they all know what Logan was after all along. But Morph still wouldn't give up on Logan, and more importantly, he understands the consequences of the Brood getting out into the world. The master plan to fix Wolverine. This is yet another masterstroke from Morph as he comes up with a plan to fix Logan from his transformed state. The Brood cannot survive the adamantium process, but Wolverine can, so his healing factor should protect him while the adamantium purges him of the Brood DNA. But for that, they must get a feral Wolverine into the chamber, and this will be one hell of a task. Once again, it is Morph up for the challenge. Morph turning into Cyclops and Jean Grey is such a comic relief. The episode was getting a bit too serious until Morph came up with the idea to transform into Cyclops to lure Wolverine into the chamber. He instigated the feral version of Wolverine enough as Cyclops, and when he stabs him with his claws, Morph immediately turns into Jean Grey to evoke some suppressed emotions. Ultimately, it all works out, even though Sabretooth almost ruined it by picking a fight with Wolverine. After all, we cannot have an episode featuring the two without a serious fight sequence between them. Wolverine saves the day. All's well that ends well, and this one does. As Wolverine is back to his own self in the chamber, he takes on the mighty Omega Red, who's threatened to kill all of them. It is a vicious duel that follows as the facility is set to blow up to bits. I'll never forget the scene where Wolverine says, "I'm back, baby." And finally, Omega Red is left there in the facility as they manage to escape at the last second. Everything is blown, and hopefully the Brood threat has been dealt with because they have bigger concerns going ahead. Wolverine regains his adamantium, but disappoints Morph. I make it a point in each of one of my videos in X-Men 97 to talk about the incredible writing and depth that it adds to the plot. Even in the case it is not different, you can see that Wolverine is hell-bent on getting his adamantium back, and he is willing to go to any extent and risk anything to go back to his prime. However, the indication that Morph's loyalty might likely be unrequited love proves to be uncomfortably true. He really is the loyal shape-shifting fox sidekick to Logan's samurai warrior, as Yuriko had pointed out earlier in the final scene when Logan has regained adamantium and embraced the beast within. Morph is left disappointed. Deep down, Morph always thought of Wolverine as someone more than raw muscle and sharp metal claws. It is probably also an indication that while Wolverine has returned to his best form, it might widen the distance between him and his teammates. This is a spiritual sequel to Weapon X, Lies and Videotape. I mean, the title of the episode is a major giveaway, isn't it? This episode serves as the spiritual sequel to the episode in the original animated series, and the reassembling of Team X has a lot of significance here. I love how this works as a reminder that for X-Men 97 to run, X-Men the animated series had to walk and set up the scene. Honestly, if you ask me, I don't mind a changing direction to complete the Wolverine saga, even though I know that a lot is at stake with Apocalypse as the big bad threat. For starters, I really enjoyed such a Wolverine-centric episode that is smart enough to cover so much of the story in so little time. Secondly, the cameos, the fun throwbacks to the classic comics, and the depth of the story really makes you appreciate the geniuses involved behind the show. Of course, I would love the main story to continue as it deals with a primary crisis, and I'm sure it will from the next episode onward. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this episode and the strange Team X reunion for a mission that is tied to the past. Also, if you appreciate the efforts to bring you this content, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more such videos. I'll see you in the next one.